Welcome to this week's Mission Compass. I'm Tim Whitehead, your host. In just a few minutes, we're going to be talking with Rick Bradford again. Yeah, don't worry, this isn't a rerun. We just had so much to talk about that he's doing there, building schools, putting in wells, building churches, that it took more than one episode of the Mission Compass to talk about. So, if you were left, cliffhanger last week and you've been waiting all week long for the rest of this conversation, it's here. Also, Stan Jeter, our very good friend, joins us again. Every month, Stan joins us, talks about how we could be a missionary using our smartphone. Yeah, get out there telling God's story, what your church is doing. Maybe you're involved in some other charity work and so on. You want to capture on the phone and let other people know about it. It's a great way to be a witness. That's all it is. Acts 1:8, be a witness. So, without further ado, Mission Compass coming your way.
Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass podcast. To learn more about Galcom and our guests today, visit galcom.org.
Jesus was such a radical person as it pertained to love, because he told us to even love our enemies. I think I've only met 4 people in my life that have been capable of that. So if that's the mandate, we've all got a lot more work to do.
Hello, friend. Welcome to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. I'm Ron Harris. On today's Mission Compass, we want to update you on what Galcom is doing around the world, and also connect with a ministry partner who, like Galcom, is making waves. Where do you fit in the Great Commission? Well, keep listening. We may have an answer for you. And here's your host, Galcom's Tim Whitehead.
Well, thank you, Ron. Friends, I'm sure you've been waiting all week long. Highly anticipated edition of the Mission Compass here as we finish our conversation with SIM missionary Rick Bradford later in the program. But before we get to that, Bonnie Sale is going to take us through our Reset Devotional, and Stan Jeter, as he does every month, joins us to share about how we can be missionaries using our smartphones. And he has a nice little report about the blockbuster hit, The Jesus Revolution. Have you seen it yet? I haven't been out to the movies yet. I got to go see this thing. I don't know if it's in theaters anymore. I might have missed it. But The Jesus Revolution, he's got a great report on that and the power of media in missions. And that's why we want to get you involved with your smartphone. You can be making short, newsworthy videos, distributing them, talking about what God is doing through you, through your church, through ministries you're involved with. But before we get to any of that, as we head into the fall, I can't believe I just said that. It's August now. We're preparing our quarterly prayer calendar newsletter. We don't like to send out a lot of mail. We don't want to overload people. We don't want to spam people in their email boxes, their mailboxes, electronic mailboxes. So we send out a quarterly prayer calendar. A prayer request every day. If you've been following us on social media at all, you'll be getting those. On Facebook, Instagram, you'll see those prayer requests pop up there. We also send it in paper form, and we'll send you out a little magnet. You can stick it on your fridge so you can be praying for us. Now, why do I talk about all this? Well, it's in our name. Galcom. The com is for communication, but the gal is a Hebrew word taken from Psalm 37:5. Commit your way to the Lord, trust also in him, and he'll bring it to pass. That Hebrew word for commit is gal, to hand it over, to entrust it to someone. And we do that every day here at Galcom in prayer. The first half of hour of our day, we spend, the whole staff gathered together praying, asking God to provide for our needs, to get some of our shipments of radios around the world, to protect our partners. And we pray through our own prayer calendar. So that day's prayer request, we're praying for our partner, maybe a volunteer here at the office. We want you praying with us. Please be praying with us. We cannot do anything without God intervening, without God helping. So, the best way to get on our mailing list to get that prayer calendar, and again, we only send it out quarterly, so we're not going to be sending you mail every week, is to go on our website, galcom.org, galcom.org. And when you start to look at the website there, I'm looking at it now, I see my shocked face promoting one of our Mission Compass programs, but a little pop-up. We made it really easy. So a little screen will pop up there. It says, we want you to know. Join our mailing list and stay informed on Galcom's upcoming events and prayer requests. You fill out your name and email there, and we'll send you either by email or by post, if you prefer. I prefer the paper copy. Like I said, I put it up on my fridge. I keep it in front of my mind. I'm praying for things. We'll send you our prayer calendar newsletter. Now, we have a special edition coming up in September. I was speaking at one of our partner churches in St. Catharines, Ontario, and a couple of the missions committee took me out to lunch, and we were chatting, and they said, Well, whatever happened to the prayer request you sent us about Quebec? And whatever happened about the prayer request you sent us about a shortage of microchips to make the radios? And whatever happened to I thought, we're not doing a good job celebrating what God is doing as he answers the prayers that we have in our ministry. So if you want to be encouraged in your faith, if you want to see answers to prayer, go to our website, galcom.org, sign up for our prayer calendar newsletter, because we are dedicating our September edition to answered prayer. And we want you to see, if you've been praying along with us, if you're a partner of Galcom, we want you to know that God is working. God is answering your prayers. You are making a difference in people hearing the good news of Jesus Christ. So, galcom.org, sign up for the prayer calendar, be praying for the ministry. Again, Gal, committing things to God and trusting them to him. He's our provider. He's our sustainer. And we need to be praying about all those things. So before we get to that interview, Rick Bradford, we got a few more minutes to wait. We're going to talk to Stan Jeter in just a moment.
You may be listening to us on your computer, but you can also find us on your smartphone using Spotify, iTunes, or other streaming platforms. Just go to galcom.org and choose your favorite. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast.
Well, friends, it's time to visit again with Stan Jeter, founder, director of the Global News Alliance. We've been giving you tips on how to tell God's story, how to be a reporter with a purpose. And Stan's been sharing with us over the last year, stories from around the world where God is moving. And people have captured it on their cell phone. You can participate in this too. We want to point you in the direction of telling God's story. Stan, you got another story for us this week.
Absolutely, Tim, and it's great to be with you and continue to share some of these tips and stories. So some stories are filmed exclusively with smartphones, like you said, and other stories have a mixture of more professional cameras and smartphones. So here's a story about a movie that has become extremely successful. It's called The Jesus Revolution. Maybe you've seen it, or maybe your friends have seen it. It's a movie about the time when God used an unlikely group of people to reach the hippie generation. And that sparked a movement that echoes even down the years to today. So our reporter in the UK, Peter Wooding, had a chance to interview the co-director of this movie, Brent McCorkle. And he tells us why this film is so timely in a time of hate and division across the world. So this movie has a couple of purposes. One, of course, is to do a good job commercially, but even more importantly, the producers of this movie are trying to spark another, let's say, a revolution, or they're spark some spiritual movement again, just telling the story of what God did back then. So here's the report that Pete Wooding sent us.
The co-director of Jesus Revolution is hoping the movie will see waves of a new spiritual awakening across the globe. The film is based on the true story of how God used the most unlikely people to reach the hippie generation of the 1970s in Southern California, including Greg Laurie and street preacher Lonnie Frisbee, along with Pastor Chuck Smith, played by Hollywood actor Kelsey Grammer, who opened up his church to many young hippies and led to an unexpected revival.
If you feel like you're an outcast, then join us here. If you feel like you're misunderstood and judged, this is where you belong.
Co-director Brent McCorkle explains why it was so important to tell this story today.
The world is definitely the most divided and the most hateful, the most enraged that I've ever seen it in my 50 years. And so to see Chuck Smith overcome his fear of the other, overcome his disdain of this hippie group, and allow this crazy, disparate social group to actually come into his church and find a place of belonging where they didn't really have one. I think it's just such a beautiful story in and of itself, but I think beyond that, it's an important story to tell today and show that there can be healing, there can be a coming together, there can be a way forward and a path forward out of this rage, out of this division.
And McCorkle says he's already seeing how this movie is beginning to spark a Jesus revolution in many who watch this.
Yes, it's been quite a return to that time, and people are really remembering what it was like. And I think a big part of that is everybody's just tired of the hate. Jesus was such a radical person as it pertained to love, because he told us to even love our enemies. I think I've only met 4 people in my life that have been capable of that. So if that's the mandate, if that's the gauntlet, like we've all got a lot more work to do. I would love, as an artist and as a filmmaker, as a follower of Jesus, I would love to see us all focus more on that element of our faith for sure. And I think this movie has really thrown down that gauntlet, or at least tried to, or at least point people in that direction. And I'm really proud of that.
Following its box office success and spiritual impact in the States, it's hoped the film will be a catalyst for a Jesus revolution in other parts of the world, especially when it hits the big screens across the UK and Europe in the next few weeks. Peter Wooding reporting for the Global News Alliance.
Excellent, Stan. Now, Jesus Revolution's a full-length feature movie, all sorts of cameras, lighting, all that kind of stuff. They're telling a great story of what really happened, as they said back in the 1970s, California. But we, with our cell phones, not with all the high-tech equipment, can tell stories too that's happening right in our church, in our communities. Do you have a tip for us to be a reporter with a purpose, to share God's story?
Of course, Tim. My tip today has to do with first stage of production, whether you have an expensive camera or you're using your smartphone. And some smartphones can be a little bit expensive, but they're really, really good. They have good cameras and they can do a great job. And you can do anything you need to do with a smartphone. You can film, you can edit, you can send it to some other place exclusively using your camera. But the three stages are pre-production, production, and post-production. That sounds pretty simple, but pre-production means you're getting ready for telling the story, for shooting, telling the story. Production is what you do when you're on the scene. And if it's a news type of story, which is where I work, news, if something is happening and you've got to capture it, you've got to capture enough video, interviews, and whatever, so that you can later put it all together in a way that really explains what was happening and do it in an attractive way. But that requires good planning beforehand. So here are a few things that are very important. Number one, I would say, is to know what kind of a story you're telling. Know the story. Can you explain what you're out there to tell, the story you're out there to tell? Can you explain it in a sentence or in a few words? What is the story? Narrow it down so that it's very, very clear to you and anyone who's helping you tell the story. Secondly, make sure that your equipment is ready for the shoot. And that includes clean lens. Is your battery charged? You don't want to run out of energy of battery halfway through the shoot. So make sure your battery is charged, and always take an extra battery if you can. And third, do you have sufficient memory? Is there enough memory in the phone? What I do is I've connected to an online storage, for video. And so you can just store things in the cloud, and it's done automatically, the system I have. I usually have a pretty good amount of memory left, and it does the whole process automatically. So those are my tips for today. Make sure you have a clear story concept, take care of your equipment, make sure it's ready, a clean lens, battery charged, and sufficient memory. And of course, there are other pieces of equipment that you can take. Have it all ready for going out on the shoot.
You don't want to miss what God's doing. So yes, if you're going to film something at your church, an outreach event, be prepared, plan ahead, make sure all your equipment's ready. Stan, really appreciate it. And friends, for all of the tips, gna.news. There's all sorts of stories there to see what other people are sharing about what God's doing around the world. And that's where you can also participate, get trained up, get ready, share God's story. Stan, thank you so much for joining us again here on the Mission Compass.
Thank you, Tim. See you again soon.
Victor's wife was touched by the beautiful, personalized poem he gave her for her birthday. That was until she discovered it had been written by AI, or artificial intelligence. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. In our pursuit of knowledge and understanding, we're living with the profound impact of science and technology, most recently in the realm of artificial intelligence. While maybe not recommended for love letters, AI is becoming a transformative force, changing the way we live and interact with the world around us. In healthcare, AI algorithms can analyze vast amounts of medical data, helping in the early detection of diseases and providing valuable insights for treatment plans. As we marvel at scientific advancement, it's essential to approach it with humble hearts that acknowledge God's sovereignty over all creation. The author of the Bible book of Ecclesiastes is thought to be King Solomon, the wisest man to ever live. He pointed out that no one can discover everything God is doing under the sun. Not even the wisest people discover everything, no matter what they claim. Even the most astounding discoveries and creations of man are only reflections and revelation of God's design. Setting our brains up against God is nothing new. The Apostle Paul, writing to a Roman audience, explained that since people did not like to retain God in their knowledge, he abandoned them to their foolish thinking and let them do things that should never be done. The wisest of man's wisdom still leads to death. As we surrender to his sovereignty and align our lives with his will, he invites us to seek knowledge, including scientific knowledge, with humble and reverent hearts. I'm Bonnie Sala with Reset. To hear this again, read or share this, or to find more resources like this, visit guidelines.org.
Well, friends, last week we started a conversation with Rick Bradford, SIM missionary in Nigeria. We got a little update on his work in Fulani communities, putting in wells and putting in schools, the need there to add another schoolroom so the kids during rainy season aren't sitting under a mango tree. But Rick, we started talking about the tribal conflicts, tribal tensions within the church. Started to mention that there's a lot of Hausa Christians as well as Hausa-speaking Muslims now in your area in Egbe, Nigeria. Off air, you mentioned that you've now got some workers alongside you, Hausa-speaking workers. Tell us more about the outreach to the Hausa and what you're doing to try to maybe bridge this gap between these different tribal groups who all call themselves Christians.
It hasn't been easy. It's been a process for almost 6 years. The church that has developed out of the work of the mission has grown. It's one of the larger churches in Nigeria. It's called ECWA. And so ECWA has its president, vice president, and they go once a year to the Egbe area because we have a conference. So when they come, I have an opportunity as a missionary with SIM to be face-to-face with the president. And so we were sitting and we're chatting, and I'm telling him about my visiting into the bush and what I was able to see, all these different villages, the Fulani, the Hausa, the people who don't know Christ, and we don't have missionaries. And so each year I was begging him, can you send me missionaries? Can you send me missionaries? ECWA has over 2,000 missionaries.
Wow.
Nigerian missionaries serving Nigeria, other African countries, and now even Canada. Arundel Bible Chapel has a first ECWA church in Canada. So it just happened this year. But so what's happened is that 2 years ago, they were actually agreed to send me 3 Nigerian missionaries to the region. So we work with the local church, the leadership there, the 2 different districts, and we went out to the 3 places most needed. In doing that, it's not 2 years yet. It was August 2 years ago that they started working with me, and I helped place them. And we've been working and working. In December 28th, the first church building went up. Hausa church building went up in the bush.
Wow.
Then in January, the second church building went up in the bush. And just in February, another church building went up in the bush. So these 3 missionaries have worked very hard to develop the people in the bush to accept Christ and to be able to have their own church.
Wow.
So now we have 3 churches just in the last few months. And it's been exciting. So then the leadership of the national church came down again and did a survey and checked this all out. And as of March this year, they sent 12 more missionaries. So we've now got 12 Hausa-speaking missionaries, plus the 3 Hausa-speaking missionaries earlier, working together, placing them out into various places in the bush and into the remote regions. And so we're now really placing them, getting them set up. So the issue now, what's my job? My job is empowering these missionaries, equipping these missionaries, because they're coming with nothing. They're like what Jesus said to the disciples, go without anything, just go. And just go and speak.
But these guys is probably not by choice.
It's not by choice. Unfortunately, it's so little they're given, such a small amount, and they just have to go, and hopefully the people in the community help them with food and stuff, and that's a big hope. But it doesn't always happen. We're really trying to raise support for them, to equip them. I mean, even mattresses to sleep on. I've had to be able to purchase some mattresses because some come with nothing. And the other thing is being in the bush, 6 kilometers, 12 kilometers, 17 kilometers. How do you go in and out to get food, to get water, to get anything? You need a mode of transportation. Taxis don't go there. So a motorcycle, a local motorcycle is the best mode of transportation. So one of my goals is to be able to equip all 12 of these guys with a motorcycle before I get back.
What do we talk? A couple $100?
No, it's actually $1,100, $1,100 for each motorcycle.
Okay.
So that will get them a motorcycle, a new one, licensed, everything, so no one will stop them, and they'll be able to give back and forth.
Okay.
Fortunately, I've got 2, so I've already been able to work on that. So I've been able to get commitment to get 2 of them. And so we've been working that way to help these missionaries. So here's what I'm going to say to you. What if? What God did in less than 2 years with 3 missionaries, what will he do with 12 more Hausa-speaking churches? Now, here we go. Why Hausa-speaking?
Yes, because all the time you've been here, we've always been talking Fulani.
So Fulani speak 2 languages typically, Fulfulde and Hausa. They're from the north.
Okay.
And so Hausa is a trade language in the north, and that's the language they understand. We're in Yoruba land. And as Yoruba-speaking churches or English, the Fulani don't understand Yoruba and they don't understand English. If I have a Fulani believer, someone come to Christ, where do I take them? To the Yoruba church? It's not going to be pleasant. You know, we have other churches here. We all pick and choose what church we want to go to here because we don't like the sermon. We don't like the person sitting beside us. We don't like, well, this is not that kind of choice. It's a language. I don't understand what he's saying. So you can see why we're looking at, now the Hausa are coming to faith. We have Hausa Christians have come and others are coming to faith quicker. 3 Hausa churches. So this now is that step of progression. If a Fulani comes to faith, he now can go to a Hausa-speaking church and understand what's being taught. So it's a step by step. And then from that, my dream is that we would have a Fulani-speaking church in the next couple of years. So that's really the progression of how to do this. Otherwise, I'm not sure what we would be doing. We're just, the Spirit does a lot. Yes, it speaks a lot for us, but we do have things that we need to be looking forward to doing.
And we need to be reminded, I think we said it last week, to be Fulani is to be Muslim. It is a cultural identity thing. So if someone meets you, you're giving them an audio Bible, they come to faith in Jesus Christ, they don't understand Yoruba, they don't understand English, so they don't fit in that church. Now they got that issue, and they also have pressure from family. So that, where do they go to grow in their faith? So this is such a great, as you said, a step where they can find other believers they can at least communicate with.
One other thing I want to share with you. I started 3 years ago a small group of Fulani who were doing Bible study. They wanted to be like the Yoruba church they hear about. They hear the singing. They wanted us to sing a song. So we sang a song. They wanted us to pray with them. So we prayed with them. And they wanted us to hear, to speak to them about what the Bible was saying. So we were doing that. And they wanted Sunday because that's the church day, right? That's God's day. Well, it wasn't a year. And their own people were disturbing them. They were coming. They heard about this small group on Sundays learning the Bible and singing. And they convinced them, probably was life or death, convincing them that they had to stop. They couldn't meet on Sunday. They couldn't do this. And so they had to stop. They told us to stop. I mean, we started to do a little bit more on Saturday and Friday. We changed our day a little bit. But it just really scared them that they had to stop. When they meet in a Hausa church, they can mingle with them, and they are not so much set aside as, this is just Fulani. So they won't disturb them as much. So we really see that as an aid to them coming to know Christ.
That's really exciting, that there is somewhere safe for them to go where they can get built up in their faith and discipled. A little bit of protection from the persecution from family that don't believe in Christ. Just a couple minutes left. These missionaries, 12 more missionaries. This is phenomenal. Now you have all these workers. So friends, now here is our calling. This is, here in the Mission Compass, we're always saying you got a part to play. We want you to go. We want you to serve. Well, this is the good old-fashioned missionaries at your church. We need funding. We need resources for this missionary to meet what we call in missions the felt need. The felt need is water in school. The real need is Jesus Christ. But for the credibility, for the reputation, we need to meet this need. So sim.org.
.ca, actually.
.ca, okay,
Yeah.
So Canada.ca, we got friends in the U.S. listening too, so sim.ca, type in the search Bradford, and you'll see the little page comes up, all that information there, motorcycles for missionaries to get in and out, to get traveling to places, but water and school for this community, 500 huts, 1,000 plus people that are open to the gospel, and now we need to meet this felt need. And so then this gives the missionary the credibility to preach the gospel because we've shown the love of Christ to meet this need, and now we can tell them the gospel. Rick, always great when you come in. It's educational, as we learn about the tribal issues, but also really encouraging that in just less than a year, 3 missionaries planting 3 churches. I don't know how many hundreds of people that represents, but friends, God is moving in Nigeria. Let's get behind this work and make a difference. Rick,
Amen.
God bless you.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. Thank you again, Tim, for allowing me to be here. It's always a great time to be with you and to share what God has been doing in Nigeria.
Well, friend, we're at the end of our program today. You've been listening to Galcom's Mission Compass, your guide to the Great Commission. There are many ways to partner with us. To find out more, visit our website at galcom.org. That's Galcom, spelled GALCOM.org. You can also follow us on Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and YouTube. I'm Ron Harris. Thanks for joining us today on Mission Compass, a radio ministry of Galcom International.
If you enjoyed this podcast, we upload a new episode every Monday. You can also find us on the radio or other streaming platforms. We have a list on our website. Make sure to subscribe, follow, and share our podcast. Please rate this episode and leave a review. We would love to hear back from you. And we also want to know where you're listening from. So click Mission Compass on our website, tell us, and we'll send you Galcom's devotional, 30 Days of Faith.